Ooh, this has been a tough one to review. Like I said in the opening, I'm here to show you the last bit of the review for our Xbox Series S. That once again, big massive shout out to Xbox ANZ for letting us have a crack at it. We've had it for a couple of weeks. Myself and Lucas have had a go of it. We've both given a bit of our thoughts on it. Had some discussions over on the podcast. Had some videos up on the YouTube channel, so make sure you check them out. And this is my sort of my final wrap up and overall view of it. So I'm going to go through a few things and explain just how I come to the decisions that I have. I've played a few games on it, and I've compared those games that I've played on the Xbox Series S to my Xbox One X. Still getting the names right. Uh, and just sort of whereabouts they sit up. So let's get into the meat and bones of it, shall we? All right. So, as you can tell, and you would have seen if you've had a look at my unboxing video, the Xbox Series S is a absolute stunning unit for something that's in such a small form factor. It's really quite a nice, simplistic unit. It's quiet. It doesn't get excessively hot. It gets warm, as you would expect from anything that's, you know, using computing power. Everything gets hot. So that does have your normal sort of heat that comes out, but there's no fan noise. Uh, there's nothing really out of the ordinary to talk about how the console itself runs. But going away from that form and function of it, I've struggled to actually see whereabouts in the marketplace the Xbox Series S actually sits. Now, it's come in as a, not the regular games. It's very much, after playing it, it is very much not aimed at those who want to make console gaming their main point of call. If you are a console gamer, if you're upgrading from the One X, this is not for you. It's very much that simple. I would go as far as saying that it is solely aimed at those people that want to have maybe an extra console in the lounge room for the kids, to play Game Pass games so that you can share it on. Uh, but with a $500 price tag, I just this the value's not there. Let's talk about a few of the games. So all the clips that you're going to see here are clips that I have captured directly off the One S, and we're going to go through and have a look at Assassin's Creed, a little bit of Watchdogs, Dirt 5. I played a lot of Dirt 5 on the Series S. I've also chucked in Ori and the Will of the Wisps. It's kind of a given. I think it's a bit of a flagship from Microsoft. It's quite a nice game. And also, I'll go into a little bit on the Falconeer and the Tourist as well. But let's probably start off with the biggest one, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, it was a Xbox exclusive, an Xbox release title. They sort of partnered up together to have a release of it. Now, running on the Series S, the lighting effects, the actual gameplay, it's all still there. There was a lot of issues with Assassin's Creed, sort of teething issues that have been documented up the wazoo. I'm not going to get into that. But one thing that I did find with the Series S is that there was a lot of screen tearing, to the point where if I was playing it on my 1080p monitor, that is a 60 hertz monitor, it would get to the point that by the end of the night, after playing it for sort of say 2, maybe 3 hours, my eyes would be exceptionally tired, because any time that I would be climbing up a wall, which really kind of doesn't make a lot of sense because there's not a lot going on. I'm literally climbing up the side of a mountain, but there would be a lot of screen tearing in it. Visually, though, there wasn't too much of a downgrade. I did play it on my 4K TV. It obviously wasn't hitting 4K. I just had it set at 1080 I did bump it up for 4K and tried, you know, the YouTube stuff. I then ran Ori at 4K and a few other bits and pieces. We'll get to that later. But for Assassin's Creed, I just set it at 1080 because I knew it wasn't going to run at those sort of high levels after the experience on the monitor. And, you know, it looked nice, but it still had that, it's kind of like a bit of a grainy edge to it. It wasn't crisp. That being said, though, on the One X, which I'm playing again on a 1080p monitor, but I'm actually, you know, streaming it to my PC, and I wasn't getting those things. I wasn't getting that aliasing. I wasn't getting the screen tearing. There's a few little things in regards to the lighting, the way it's been done. Uh, some of it works, some of it doesn't. Some of it makes you feel as though you're in a bit of a Michael Bay sort of movie with a bit of lens flare and whatnot, where it sort of takes away. It's kind of used to take away from issues in other areas because it sort of moves your line of sight into those bits. But yeah, look, it doesn't like it. The other big release, of course, from Ubisoft was Watchdogs Legion. I haven't played a lot of this one as I've been more stuck into Assassin's Creed, and now a few other things have come up. But Watchdogs Legion, unfortunately, there was a massive issue, or a massive change, I should say. The whole game looked washed out. Now, I know it sounds like I'm pointing at negatives. It still ran fine. It still had a few little frame rate issues, which were not overly like. None of the frame rate issues that I'm talking about are game breaking at all. It's just that they're noticeable. Uh, the game itself, though, it did look very washed out, especially when you're looking at a lot of the promotional material for Watch Dogs Legion, and it was all talking about this bright, vibrant nightlife and things like that. That just didn't come across. It doesn't come across because we don't have the ray tracing on the One X. Uh, it was still used to a slightly better effect, and it had a bit more vibrancy to it. But the Series S, it just kind of missed the mark on that one. Dirt 5. Dirt 5 is probably it's the game out of this list that's really up my alley. You know, racing, getting stuck into it, and being a dirt game, and it's got that sort of bit of arcadey feel, but you can make it up, you know, as full on as you want it to be. But overall, the game itself is a lot of fun. And to be honest with you, every single game that I've played here has been fun. Dirt 5 is fun. It's quick. It's very much dirt, and certain parts of this you're given an option. So you've got frame rate mode or performance mode. Now, racing games don't need a massive frame rate. It's just not necessary, and they're not overly heavy on the graphical power because you're only really rendering the cars on the track, and everything outside of the track is secondary. And when you're racing, you're not really, you know, looking down the street as you're going along. So it's very sort of point focused. I left it on uh, the quality version, so you sort of pick between quality or frame rate. If you go to frame rate, you get aliasing, you get fuzzy names, you get to the point where the names are actually unreadable on the competitors' cars. The resolution and pixelization just drops it to a point that it's. I'd probably go as far as to say as you just don't get the same level of enjoyment. You don't get that next gen or even current gen or current gen now or you know new feel to it. It feels like an old game. On the quality setting, the ray tracing works really well. It's you can see it in puddles, in mud, in lightning cracking through the sky. Again, there was some lens flare issues, which is part of the ray tracing in this game, where you know certain things would flare up just to sort of add that extra element to it. So it all looked fine. Again, unfortunately though, the One S just struggled a little bit. Last one I'll talk in depth was about tonight will be Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps, I have played only on the 4K TV. I've been playing it at 4K 60 frames. I found out that my TV, when anything's connected to it, only supports 60 frames, even though it's a 200 hertz television. So that's a new one for me. Uh, this game, though, the Series S ate it. Absolutely smashed it out of the park. It ran beautifully. It it's a side-scrolling, platformer, but the lighting in it, the colors, the flares, the flashes, the creatures, everything was absolutely stunning. And the way in which the colors actually come through and the variance of colors from different parts of the game and how they all just work and look, it was absolutely stunning. Ori is a game. I am not a platformer. I do not do well. I I can play shooters, third persons, racing games till the cows come home. I rage at platformers, but the sheer beauty and just it was nice and buttery smooth to play. It was really quite a joy to actually see it with that ray tracing, to see it get that influx of color. It really helped to bring the world alive. So that's one that's just was just fun and was absolutely beautiful. The last two are the Tourist and the Falconeer. I'll start with the Falconeer because the Falconeer I've only been able to play a little bit of it because I just don't get it. I don't get the controls quite yet. I'm still mucking around with it and doing little bits and pieces, but overall, I don't know if it's my cup of tea, especially when it's sort of trying to battle my own personal experience of flying, whether it be a fighter jet or a prop or something that you've been flying in the games for years, and you're going and you're flying a falcon, a bird. Uh, there's different mechanics at play that just the brain's not getting across just yet. But the game itself, running on the One S, the Series S, it's again, it's beautiful in its simplicity. The graphics on it are not realistic. They're they're sort of animated, cartoony graphics, but again, it seems to be the console's strong point because everything was crisp, everything ran really well, and I never had a hiccup. And I'm flying over massive oceans with other birds around and lightning storms going, and you're getting in dogfights with things blowing up around you, and never had an issue. So it was really nice to see, and the Falconeer is something that I've got some video playing along as I'm chatting. So hopefully, if it's something that you see, um, you've played, or it might look up your alley, then please let us know because I'd like to hear more about it. Just because it intrigues me. It's a beautiful game, but my head just doesn't work for it at the moment. Now, the last game that I'm going to finish it off with is the Tourist. Tourist is a little blocky sort of adventure game that my kids have absolutely loved and gone running around crazy with. Now, again, graphics are not realistic. The world is not realistic. The world is very basic, but the console eats it up, and you really get that new generation feel from the difference between the previous consoles. Because I've played this on PC previously, and I've played it on um, Xbox, the One X as well, previously, and again since wanting to compare them. Now, it's it's great. It's fun. It's a quirky little title, and it's just a little puzzler. You know, it's nothing really over the top, but it's a good bit of fun. Okay, I've given everyone a bit of a rundown. You've seen some video of what I've been talking about. Now, I kind of want to get into whereabouts in the marketplace this sits. Now, the Xbox Series S has been marketed as that lower tier of console. It's not going to go and put, 4K 120 frames. And I get that. And to be honest with you, I, I don't want it for me personally. I'm quite happy playing all of my screens that I play on because, my wife's not a gamer. My kids are only relatively young, so me playing anything violent where they've got the potential to see it, it's not going to happen. So my screens are only 1080 screens. I have one that's the 75 hertz, one that's the 60 hertz, and I'm more than happy to play on these. And I want to play a game which, when I'm running at that 1080 limit, I want to have the power there for it to run nice and smooth, whether it be, you know, hitting that 60 frame mark or staying around that 60 frames. I want it to have that ray tracing on, and I want it to have high fidelity graphics. That's where I'm at. So unfortunately, with the Series S, it just kind of misses that in a few bits. It runs very well. The boot up times are quick. They're not mind-blowingly quick. The quick resume feature is great. You can be back into a game very quickly. And you can have a couple open at a time and jump between the two of them. That side of it's great, but the actual cold boot up to get into a game, it's I wouldn't say it's instantaneous or excessively quick. It is much quicker than a HDD, a standard hard drive, but it's it's not mind-blowingly. And whether it's just because I've now been exposed to an SSD with PC, I don't know, but it was like it wasn't like I went, wow, this started up so quickly. There, it just didn't happen. Just being honestly what it was. Um, the console overall, uh, this is where I sort of get a bit muddled up, and I've been I've recorded this bit a couple of times. I've recorded the whole thing a couple of times now because of just being in different moods and different mindsets on how I'm going to sort of approach things and talk about them. So overall, for me, from my point of view, I wouldn't purchase it. There's nothing wrong with the console. It does everything it's advertised to do. It just doesn't do enough. One of the one of the big things that Microsoft has spoken about is that they don't believe in console generations. I still do. I still think if I'm going to go and spend, you know, for what is a lot of people a week's wage, then you know I don't want to spend it on that. I want a big step forward. I want new features. I want new changes. I want a new experience. You know, this unfortunately, it's not a step up from my previous console, which was the One X. Even to a point, certain things I felt it ran just as good as the One S. And that's probably the uh, looking at something like the graphical fidelity on the Dirt 5 frame rate mode. It's the One S was looking better. Overall, it's going to be a little while until the Series S comes into its own. Now, unfortunately, do I think that it will hold back on some of those big first party Xbox games? Unless they're looked after properly, it very much has uh, it has that possibility that it will bottleneck them, or we'll start getting a point where it's going to be like PC gaming, and you're going to have to download extra stuff to install onto your, say, Series X to get that next level of product, or of fidelity, I suppose. It's it's a really hard one because I like the console. I've enjoyed my time with it. Technically, it's brilliant. It looks stunning. It works. It does everything it's supposed to, and it does exactly what people have been touting it as. But it's not a next gen experience. It's not. It doesn't feel like a step forward. It kind of feels like a bit of a sideways step, like they've gone, here you go, we'll throw ray tracing in a 1X. It's, and even then, because they've thrown the ray tracing in, it bottlenecks the GPU a little bit. So it's very hard. And I know I'm probably being a little bit harsh on it, but I'm just trying to be honest because I'm not going to blow smoke up it and say it's the greatest thing and it shits all over the previous gen, because quite frankly, it just doesn't. And I really wish it did, because the form factor and the options, the Microsoft network in itself is leaps and bounds. Over the last 6 years, it has absolutely exploded. And they've got such a great backing now and such a great direction. I cannot, deny what they're doing is perfect. Really, it's pretty damn close to perfect what they're doing for the consumer. But yeah, this unfortunately just misses just a little bit. Oh, I think it just needs a little bit more grunt, or quite frankly, a lower price. It's $500 here in Australia. Like that's a big hit for what it does, and especially with you know the 1X or the 1S still out there in the world. We are selling out of them, but they're still gettable. So uh yeah, that's it. Leave all your thoughts below. Try and be nice, because well, just try. I have been Pat from the Aussie Games Experience, and I think it's about time I went and got a new Xbox baseball cap. This one's it's too bland, it's too old. It's from the last EB Expo in Sydney. I have to try and find a new one. Leave your comments down below. I will see you all very soon. Don't forget to hit up the podcast, which you can find on our YouTube channel, and you'll hear Greggio asking some questions, his ideas on it, and also Lucas' thoughts on his time with it. So, see you soon.